nirayam tasmat
Vishatam nirayam tasmat
Guruna chanumodita
Guruna chanumodita
Pratishrutam madatuste
Sarvishrutam madatuste
Nirayava sakhyate
Nirayava sahishyate Vishatam nirayam tasmat Guruna chanumodita
Pratishrutam
what had been promised.
What had been promised
Adatu, who could not give. Te, of you. Niraye, Vasa, residence. Ishyate, prescribed.
Visha. Now enter. Tvam. Yourself. Nirayam. The hellish planet. Tasmat. Therefore. Guruna. By your spiritual master. Cha. Also. Anumoditaha. Approved. It said Visha there, right? It's like visa, because you take a visa to enter a country. I thought it was interesting. Yeah. All right. Translation and purport to this chapter are by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. I'll read the translation. Because you have been unable to give charity according to your promise, the rule is that you should go down to live in the hellish planets. Therefore, in accordance with the order of Shukracharya, your spiritual master, now go down and live there. Who wants to read purport? Venkatesh Prabhu.
It is said, everyone together.
Sarve na kutaschana bhivyate svargo parvarga narkesh api tulyartha darshinaha. What is solely? Okay.
Devotional service of the Supreme Personality of God, Narayana. Never fear any condition of life. For them, the heavenly planets, liberation and the hellish planets are all the same. For such devotees are interested only in the service of the Lord. Bhagavatam 6.17.2. A devotee engaged in the service of Narayana is always with you believe. The devotee always lives transparently. Although he may appear to have gone to hell or heaven, he does not live in either place. Rather, he always lives in Vaikuntha, Saguna, Sama, Brahma Bhutaya Kalpade. Vamanadev asked Bali Maharaj to go to hellish planets, apparently just to show the entire universe how tolerant he was. And Bali Maharaj did not hesitate to carry out the order. A devotee does not live alone. Of course, everyone lives with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But because the devotee is engaged in his service, he actually does not live in any material condition. Bhakti Vinod Thakur says, Kita Janma Ayo Kita Tuyadasa.
Thus he prays to take birth as an insignificant insect in the association of devotees. Because devotees are engaged in the service of the Lord, anyone who lives with them also lives in Vaikuntha.
I was wondering if you could also read the purport to Canto 6 that's mentioned in the. Himanshu, probably you can read.
Translation?
Okay, translation again. Yeah, please.
Devotees solely engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of God and Narayana never fear any condition of life. For them, the heavenly planets, liberation, and the hellish planets are all the same. For such devotees are interested only in the service of the Lord. Parvati might naturally have inquired how devotees became so exalted. Therefore, this verse explains that they are Narayana Para, simply dependent on Narayana. They do not mind reservoirs in life because in the service of Narayana, they have learned to tolerate whatever hardships there may be. They do not care whether they are in heaven or in the hell. They simply engage in the service of the Lord. This is their excellence. Anukulena
Krishna Anushilanam.
Yeah. They are liberally engaged in the service of the Lord, and therefore they are excellent. By using the word Bharatya, Bharatya, Lord Shiva pointed out although Chitraketu provided one example of tolerance and excellence. All the devotees who have been taken shelter of the Lord as eternal servants are glorious. They have no eagerness to be happy by being placed in the heavenly planets, becoming liberated, or becoming one with the Brahman, the supreme effulgence. These benefits do not appeal to the lower minds. They are simply interested in giving direct service to the Lord.
Jai, thank you so much, Prabhu. So before we continue on, can we have someone summarize everything that's happened in this section of Bhagavatam so far? Everything related to Bali Maharaj so far? Anyone like to volunteer? All right, Antariksh Prabhu.
Dear Prabhu,
Antariksh Prabhu, you can go.
I guess Prabhu wanted to. No, no, you go ahead, please.
So, Vamana Dev have appeared as a son
Mhm.
to Aditi
Mm-hmm.
to cure the pride of Bali Maharaj and take away the heaven plants and give it back to Indra. So now he's walked down in the assembly of Bali Maharaj, and he is like a effulgent sun who has in whose effulgence all of the other brahmanas' effulgence is almost diminished. And so he goes there and asks Bali Maharaj for 3 steps of land as charity.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a whole dialogue between Shukracharya and Bali Maharaj. Shukracharya gives 9 reasons of why you should not give charity to him. And then Bali Maharaj gives 9 reasons of why you should give charity to him. So at the end, Bali Maharaj rejects his Guru's advice to not give charity, and he promises 3 steps of land to Vamanadev.
Mm-hmm.
But so Vamanadev, what happens is that he increases his size, and then he takes over all of the universe with just 2 steps of lands. One step on the earth, Burloka, and with 1 step, he takes away everything else. And then because Bali Maharaj is not able to fulfill his promise of giving 3 steps of land, he asks Garuda to bind him up, arrest him with Varuna, and now he's telling Bali Maharaj that you should go down to hellish planets because you are not able to fulfill the promise.
Yes, thank you so much for the very elaborate summary. Yes, exactly. So yes, so when Bali Maharaj saw Vamanadev, he was kind of looking down at him, what can I give you? And then he gave him 3 steps of land, and Vamanadev grew very tall, so I was looking at him like this. And so, so Bali Maharaj is in a bit of trouble, right? But what's interesting is, despite this external thing that's happening to him, first of all, he gets rebuked by his spiritual master. He gets everybody tells him, no, don't do this, and he's on the verge of losing everything, even on the verge of not keeping his promise. Although he does keep his promise, he is going through a bit of a difficult time in his life, so to say the least. But as we read in the next chapter, chapter 22, we learn that despite all of these circumstances, Bali Maharaj is still very transcendental to these external situations. He's still fine. He's still tranquil. He's still peaceful. And as we read in the Canto 6 purport, previously that Himanshu Prabhu read, that devotees are naturally very exalted because they're devotees of Krishna. But one of the most important qualities that a devotee has is tolerance, and that so in the purport it says that Chitraketu provided one example of tolerance and excellence, and all the devotees have taken shelter of the Lord as eternal servants are glorious. So tolerance is a very important quality for devotees. And if you look at Bhagavatam as a whole, so many devotees, so many personalities exemplify the quality of tolerance. Can anyone name a couple of examples that exemplify tolerance? Do you know? Okay, Prahlad Maharaj. Queen Kunti. Mother Devaki, Manu Prabhu? Pandavas, yes. So So yeah, so Prahlad Maharaj, right? His father hated him because Prahlad Maharaj would chant Lord Krishna's names, and Hiranyakashipu subjected Prahlad Maharaj to so many difficult situations. Right? He threw him in a pen with an elephant so he would get trampled. He threw him off a cliff. He tried so many ways to hurt him. I just out of curiosity, Prahlad Maharaj, he wasn't affected by any of this. Was it really tolerant? Was he really tolerating all of this? Regardless, he was transcendentally situated. So whatever was happening to him, he was unaffected by what was happening. And as Mono Prabhu mentioned, the Pandavas, right? So many things that they've had to tolerate. They've had to tolerate the Kauravas trying to kill them. So many attempts on their lives made. Uh, they tolerated being humiliated, in an assembly, losing everything, unfairly being taken all of their resources, having their wife almost humiliated or put into a very humiliating situation. And despite all of this, they were willing to forgive all of this, and they were willing to tolerate all of this. And they came, and after they finished their 12 years of exile, they came to the Kauravas asking for just 5 kingdoms so that each of them could rule, because as Kshatriyas they needed some position to rule, but Duryodhana didn't even allow that. So they were willing to tolerate everything. And so tolerance is exemplified all throughout the Bhagavatam, and devotees exemplify it. And there's a very famous verse in Canto 10 that speaks about tolerance. Does anybody know what verse that is? In Canto 10, Brahma says this to Krishna about tolerance. Any guesses? Tatenukampam. So it's Canto 10, chapter 14, text 8. So Brahma says Tatenukampam susumekshamano bunjana evatma kritam vipakam hridvag vipurbir vidada namaste jivetayo mukti pade sadaya bhak. Would anyone like to read the translation? Devanshi?
My dear Lord, one who earnestly waits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon him, all while patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds, offering your respectful obeisances with his heart, words, and body, is surely eligible for liberation, where it has become his rightful
Claim. All right. So here Brahma is telling Krishna that one has to tolerate all the reactions to whatever sins that they might have committed. They have to patiently tolerate that. And then after tolerating that, they become eligible to go back home, back to Godhead. And so tolerance is mentioned here by Brahma. And then in the mornings, right, we read Trinadapi Sunichena, right? Mahaprabhu also mentions that we have to be more tolerant than a tree. So the devotees, the exalted devotees in Bhagavatam exemplify tolerance. Mahaprabhu tells us to be tolerant. Brahma is telling us to be tolerant. We're telling to be tolerant. So everyone's telling us to be tolerant. So then how does one actually cultivate tolerance? How does one, Antariksh Prabhu?
Satsang and service.
Service? Yes, exactly. So, I mean, in the Bhagavad Gita, right, we say the Bhagavad Gita is a rule book for mankind, right? We say that whatever problems one may have, there's an answer for it in Bhagavad Gita. Material problems require spiritual solutions, and Bhagavad Gita and all of Srila Prabhupada's books provide answers to those material problems that we may have by giving us spiritual solutions. And when we go on Sankirtan, we use a certain set of words to try to entice someone to take Srila Prabhupada's books. What do we say? What do we tell them? What do we ask them?
Books on yoga and meditation helps you get free from stress.
Stress, right? So stress. Who hears been stressed before? Yeah. So pretty much all of us, right? And what does Venkatesh Prabhu like to say when he goes on books, when he goes on Sankirtan? What does he say? He says a gift for you, but also says, hey, you don't look very stressful. What's your secret, right? So so stress. All of us, most of us, we experience stress. We may have a life may be full of stress, but you don't have to be stressed out about it. Stressed out about it, because okay, never mind. You didn't. Okay, but yes. So life is full of stress, and Srila Prabhupada actually gives us the answer to how to manage stress, how to cultivate tolerance. He, in the purport to the verse that we're discussing today, he quoted a verse, Sagunan samatitaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. I have heard devotees quoting this verse in Bhagvatam class. Would anyone like to, do you know? Wait, no, no, it's not the verse. I was.
Oh, Sagunan Samatityetan.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. I know this.
Mam cha.
Mam Shayo Vyabhicharena Bhakti Yogena Sevate Sagunan Samatityetan Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate.
Yes. So if you can pull up the translation, would anyone like to read the translation? Rohan Prabhu.
One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahma.
And so here, Lord Krishna is telling Arjuna that if one attains Brahman realization, one can be free from all the external circumstances that one may be experiencing. What is Brahman realization in simple to understand terms? Amala Harinam Prabhu. What is Brahman realization?
Simply realizing yourself as soul and
That you know.
realizing that there is a bigger entity in which you get merged into something like this.
Yes. So when we understand that we're not the body, that we're the soul, Krishna tells that we become transcendental to the modes of material nature. And very surprisingly, so this verse is 1426. About 7 chapters before this, Lord Krishna also mentioned something about how to overcome or how to transcend external circumstances. Would anyone like to say what verse that is? It's from chapter 7. We quote it almost every time. Huh? So this verse is 1426. In chapter 7, there's another verse, 7:14, that explains where Krishna explains how to also become transcendental to external situations and 3 modes of material nature. We quote it quite frequently during Bhagavatam class.
About just being tolerant.
No. Daivyesha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mame vaya prapadyante maya metam tarantite. So Krishna tells Arjuna that one who surrenders unto him can very easily, can you go to the translation, Prabhu? We can very easily transcend the 3 modes of material nature. So all of the modes act on the material body because they're limited to only the material realm, right? Devotees, devotees might also experience stress and all that, but the stress that we experience is limited to just the body. And so Krishna is telling us that, and Srila Prabhupada is also telling us in his purports that if we surrender to Krishna and if we understand that we're not the body, then we can become indifferent to what happens externally to us. And there's so many examples. Prabhupada, right? He had to tolerate so many things, tolerate so much through his example, right? What are all the things that Srila Prabhupada had to tolerate that he's shown us through his example? Jai Prabhu?
No, I
Oh.
have a question.
Oh yeah.
But you can,
No, you can.
So, let's say one is addicted to drugs and drinking and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So, how can one surrender to Krishna so that he can leave those things? Like, how does it work?
As Antariksh Prabhu said, sadhu sangha, by surrounding yourself with other like-minded individuals. If you surround yourself with smokers, then because of their influence, you might become a smoker. If one is trying to give up smoking and giving up other bad habits, surrounding oneself by people that have cultivated those good habits can help them cultivate those same habits.
So, ultimately, surrendering to Krishna looks like just being in association with the people who have surrendered to Krishna.
Yes. Surrendering by associating with devotees that have surrendered to Krishna can help one become surrendered to Krishna. And I think in Srila Prabhupada's purports and also devotees say that, like for example, we're all seeking Krishna prema, right? Love for Krishna. It can only be given by someone that has Krishna prema, right? So likewise, if we want to cultivate good qualities, we should associate with persons that have those good qualities. Um, yes, I think there's a thing on Instagram, right? If you want to be a millionaire, then surround yourself with other millionaires, right? Or those kind of things, right? We read all the time. So it applies to Krishna consciousness also. But yeah, back to the point. So Srila Prabhupada, he's a founder acharya of this movement, and he has had to tolerate so many things. And can we just quickly go around the room discussing some of the things Srila Prabhupada had to undergo and how to tolerate?
All the financial struggles.
Financial.
Starting the Back to Godhead magazine.
Financial struggles. Yes, starting with the Back to Godhead magazine. Yes, Anshi.
A lot of backlash from his godbrothers.
God brothers.
For,
Yes.
for giving initiation to women or giving Brahman initiation to people outside the caste system.
Himanshu.
Prabhupada had to tolerate all the Western devotees who doesn't know anything about like culture, because in India people still know something, but they literally don't know.
Yes.
Tolerate everything.
Yeah. Yes. Anything else?
I don't think he was tolerating. I think it was his pleasure to do that.
But yeah, in a way, yes.
Had to
Prabhupada
tolerate.
said that once. That
If you tolerate Shama Sundar was making the Baladev eating and while he was smoking, so he was tolerating. Or it's not acceptable, but yeah, he was like so delicious.
Yes. Rohan Pro, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, he had so many physical pains that he was not able to walk, and he was not able to like he had two heart attacks.
Two heart attacks.
And the physical pain also.
Yes. So Srila Prabhupada suffered through so much. He tolerated so many physical distresses. When he came to the United States, he didn't know anybody here. He wasn't well dressed for the weather. It was very cold. He didn't have much Lakshmi in his pockets, and he tolerated all of that. And oftentimes, when devotees speak about how they've developed their love for Srila Prabhupada, compassion, they usually mention compassion. He's so compassionate, but also it's just he's so tolerant that he's so tolerant when we read about all the things Srila Prabhupada had to experience, it creates a very it endears him to us. We feel for him. He put himself through so much just for my sake. I feel like I should do something for him. That's the feeling that a lot of a few devotees that I've spoken to have mentioned that. And so tolerance is a very important quality. It's also a very attractive quality. And as Brahma mentioned in his prayer to Krishna, that Krishna becomes like when we tolerate all the reactions to all of the sins that we may have committed, Krishna, he's like, oh wow, he's tolerating all of this. I should bring him back. Krishna brings us back to him. And as Brahma says, it becomes a rightful claim. And so the devotees tolerate, and we're asked to tolerate. And on a more practical, so we've discussed how one should know that they're not the body, that they should get to Brahman realization. They should do that, and they should surrender to Krishna, surround themselves with other like-minded individuals who have attained those good qualities. How else can one overcome stress and tolerate some of the distresses of material life? Are there any other ways to do it? Are there any other ways? Are there more? We've discussed some of the ways of how to tolerate stress and material difficulties. But are there any other ways that we can do that? Mono Prabhu?
realizing that it's Krishna's will.
Realizing that it's Krishna's will, right? Queen Kunti prays, right? Nityananda Prabhu was mentioning that Queen Kunti also tolerated. And in Queen Kunti's prayers, we read that she actually asks for more distress, right? For example, for me, I'm asking for less stress in life, but Queen Kunti is asking for more stress. And also because she can see Lord Krishna. So she can see Lord Krishna and she can have his company. And also, as we discussed in the earlier sections of Canto 8, when Ananda Madhav Prabhu was here, he was giving Bhagvatam class, and we were talking about Kurmadev. Ananda Madhav Prabhu was explaining how Lord Krishna not only takes away obstacles, but also might give us obstacles for us to deal with. And so as Monu Prabhu was saying right now, sometimes Lord Krishna gives us stressors to deal with stressors to manage, to see if we've really have cultivated that. I've heard a devotee say once that if you ask Lord Krishna to make you humble, he'll send someone to insult you. So after I heard that, I stopped asking Krishna to make me humble. Yeah. So yeah. So Krishna, yeah, Jaipur wanted to say something.
So I also heard like Krishna gives you unnecessary stress or
Yeah.
obstacles in your life because he thinks like you can overcome that,
Yeah.
and because he is fortifying you with all the necessary knowledge, so you can help others who are going through the same thing.
Yes. There's often on social media, there's this funny meme that goes around like, God gives the toughest battles to his toughest soldiers. He gives, so Krishna gives, he gives us challenges just to make us stronger, right? For example, a diamond doesn't become strong. It doesn't become a diamond just like that, right? It undergoes a lot of stress. And being able to manage stress, people that are able to manage stress, they can do a lot of wonderful things, right? For example, doctors, nurses, right? They have such stressful conditions. But they're able to save people. They're able to help people. So yeah, and so Krishna is also like that. He sometimes his helping nature might be misconstrued as him being mean to us, but Krishna's mercy, it's very specific. It's custom made. He knows us inside out even better than we know ourselves. So whatever he gives us, it is for our betterment. And in Canto 1, when Parikshit Maharaj sees Dharma and Mother Cow getting beaten by Kali, he asks Dharma, who did this to you? And he asked the bull, who did this to you? And he said, I don't remember what his exact response was, but Srila Prabhupada in the purports write that whenever a devotee experiences any kind of difficulty, he doesn't blame Lord Krishna or blame the instrument of him receiving that reaction. He just accepts it as a small token from Krishna, right? Maybe I was supposed to experience something far greater, but Lord Krishna just gave me a very small dose just to help me learn. And so we spoke about tolerance, and there's another important quality that devotees have to imbibe and embody, and that is that of compassion. In the pursuit of trying to help one become tolerant, we shouldn't be very hard, right? We should be very compassionate. For example, a baby, right? Even the tiniest thing to a baby will make it is very painful for it, even the tiniest scratch, right? But we don't deride the baby, make fun of the baby. Oh, it's a tiny scratch. Why are you sad? Why are you crying, right? No, we are very compassionate. We try to, come down to the baby's level and realize that anything that's difficult for the baby, it's very painful for it. So we try to, in a very compassionate nature, try to help it become tolerant. And I've learned from a devotee that pain, especially, it's very subjective, right? What may be painful for one person, there's no way to quantify it such that, like, we try to use like a scale, right? Like, how much does it hurt on a scale of 1 to 10, just to try to understand what someone might be going through. But there's no objective way to quantify it. Whatever pain one goes through, it's very personal to them. And so although we want to cultivate tolerance, we should also be very compassionate to ourselves and not put ourselves through so much. And also, if you're encouraging other devotees to become tolerant and to manage some of the distresses in their life, we should also be very compassionate in how we do that. Just yesterday, actually, I was at school and I was sitting down and thinking about all the things that I have to do in life. And I was thinking about school. I was thinking about, work and all the things that I have to accomplish, that I have to do in my life. And I feel like time is only ticking, but I'm not going anywhere. And I had this realization that life is full of anxieties and stressors, right? It probably won't get easier. A friend told me that, it only gets harder from here, right? when we're growing up, it's very easy to, if you want something with a little endeavor, we can acquire it. But now here, there's so many obstacles, even to obtain even the most insignificant things, right? There's so many obstacles that come in our way, and I realized that, if I get jumbled, or if I get stressed out by every insignificant thing that happens to me, then it's going to be very hard to live. It's going to be very hard to exist in this material world. Although Lord Krishna does say that this material world is dukkhalam shashvatam, right? It's temporary, but it's also a very miserable place. I still have to live in this world for a period of time, so I should learn to manage stress. And so, from all the examples that we've discussed, Pandavas, Prahlad Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, and everything that we discussed today, right? Be learning, cultivating spiritual knowledge and understanding that we're not the body, and learning to surrender to Krishna, associating with like-minded individuals, can all help me, especially, manage my stress. Yeah, and so those were some of the things that I thought about in preparation for this class. Monu Prabhu, yes?
I just want to add one small thing.
Yeah.
You said things are not going to be easier from now on, right?
Yeah.
It's going to get harder and harder.
Yes.
So one thing that I realized is that things are not going to get easier. So you have to get tougher.
Yes. Yes. There's a saying, right? The going get tough, the tough get going. And as we read, every day that passes, Kali Yuga gets worse and worse, right? There's only a certain golden window where, practicing devotional service is very potent. That's why Srila Prabhupada strongly encouraged us to have a very serious desire to become spiritually situated, because Kali Yuga, it's bad right now, but it's only going to get worse, right? Everything's going to become much harder. But that's just an invitation for us to get stronger, as Mono Prabhu just said, and we can fortify ourselves by 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 diving into these wisdom texts, by reading Krishna, by chanting Krishna's names. In Udilo Aruna, the bhajan by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he writes that Nama Vina Kichu Nahi Ko Aro. There's nothing in the 14 worlds except for the holy name of Krishna. And we can take full shelter of Lord Krishna's names, associate with his devotees, take Krishna Prashadam, and all of this to fortify ourselves, to help manage our stress, and also, develop and realize how helpful it is for us, and also share this with other people. I've heard from devotees that you grow by giving, and so as we try to help ourselves grow, we can help, and we try to give that to other people. We actually become stronger. We grow ourselves, and yeah, and as I mentioned earlier, right, Srila Prabhupada writes that, we just have to try to hear and explain what we're trying to do. So if we're practicing and trying to encourage other people to practice, then we're helping ourselves grow. We're also helping other people to grow. And so that's why being in a place like Bhakti Academy, being in an environment like this where we're preaching, or preaching is a very important, like, where preaching is a very big focus. It's really helpful because it helps not just us, but helps everyone else as well. And yeah, so that's what I wanted to say. If there's any questions or any points of this, Jay Prabhu, yes.
So as you said, like there can be a lot of stress
Hmm.
in your world. There
Yeah.
can be stress of giving Bhagavatam class.
Yes.
There can be stress of doing service.
Yes.
When you're doing service, there is always another service.
Mm.
So life is always stressful.
Yes.
But there might be unnecessary stress that we might be putting on ourselves, like stress of being judged,
Mm.
stress of like not being enough, or like
Mm.
what future holds. How can we eliminate those kind of stress that is not necessary?
Mm. Stress that's not necessary. How to eliminate? Antariksha Prabhu? Yes.
It's not a stress, it's your duty. So mostly we are so much attached with the results. How will it happen? If it doesn't happen, then what will happen to me? What will happen to my family?
Mm.
As it was mentioned earlier too, that the surrender is minute to minute, second to second, situation to situation.
Mm.
So surrender to Krishna, leave it onto him, do your part, do your karma,
Mm.
and leave the results on him.
Mm.
When you are doing your part without being attached with the results, things start working out automatically.
Mm.
But when you are stressed about the results and when you are stressed about the results, you're not able to do your karma with honesty. So
Hmm.
it somewhere kind of hinders your own karmic transaction. To do your part without any attachment, without any motivation, you have to surrender to Lord and implement this spiritual knowledge in your practical life.
Yes, I really liked what you said about surrender is moment to moment. I heard from a devotee that at every moment we have two options. We can either choose Krishna or choose Maya. And so we just continue to choose Krishna. Despite whatever difficulties we may have, whatever feelings of we may think ourselves not qualified, or we may have our mind troubling us, we can still choose Krishna. Because we still choose Krishna. I think Rupa Goswami says, or in some prayer, it said that the most important thing is to always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna, and all the other rules and stuff that we have to follow are subservient to that. So the most important thing is to always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna under any circumstances, and we can do that by chanting, by hearing, by eating prasadam. Um, and so, yeah, as to your point, Jay Prabhu, whatever undue stresses that we may have, they will go away naturally when we think of Krishna. Um, right? We become purified when we associate with Krishna and things pertaining to Krishna, right? There's a verse in Canto 2, right? Akama sarva kamova moksha kama udaradi tivrena bhakti yogena jeta purusham param, right? So that verse talks about having material desires and not having material desires. Or if one desires liberation, one must do bhakti yoga under any circumstances, right? So under any circumstances, keep doing bhakti yoga, whether you feel qualified, whether you feel unqualified, no matter what, keep doing bhakti yoga, and you'll feel that your stress becoming you'll feel that your stress will dissipate. And yeah, and as a personal example, as I was preparing for Bhagavatam class, I was getting stressed out. But as I was talking about, or as I was reading and trying to formulate my thoughts about what Srila Prabhupada is writing in his purports and what Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita, I found myself becoming less stressed. And so keep choosing Krishna, keep choosing Bhakti Yoga, and eventually, naturally, your stress will dissipate by Krishna's mercy. Prabhu?
Yes. So yesterday I had an exam.
Oh.
Didn't go very well.
Oh.
I was really, really stressed about it. So the moment my exam finished, I came out of the exam hall. I had a friend waiting, and I told them I don't think I did well, and I was stressing. They tried to console, and I was like, no, what is gonna happen? This test was important. It was 20% of my final grade, and the final exam is 20%. So it's almost like I failed my final exam or something. And then on the way back, also I was very stressed. So when I'm stressed, I go into a loop of overthinking about everything that's wrong in my life. But then I tried to break the loop, and I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna not focus on these voices in my head, and I will try to listen to something. And then I found this 18-minute video, and the Prabhu was explaining very nicely that if you're in a situation which causes anxiety, you should ask yourself this: is this in my control? If yes, then why worry? If no, then why worry? So it's like in either cases, it's okay. It's difficult to give yourself that explanation when you're in anxiety, but then you should give yourself that explanation anyway. And the same thing that he quoted, Prabhu also mentioned the lines from Bhaktivinoda's bhajan, and he said that there's really nothing except the holy name in all the 14 worlds. And so that motivated me to chant. And then I was just chanting, and I was walking and chanting, and then I forgot that my exam went badly. And so I came home, and I was like, oh yeah, life's good. And then Abhinav opened the door, and I realized that, oh, Prabhu, I didn't do very well on my exam, basically. And then I went to my room and then started chanting again because I had some rounds pending. Then I forgot again. So it's like you can take shelter of the holy name in all the circumstances, no matter what's happening.
This reminded me of a thing which Kalakanta Prabhu said. So, first of all, like out of three type of kaleshas, most of us usually in Kali Yuga we suffer from this one, which is adhyatmic klesh, the misery we give it to ourselves by overthinking or by over endeavoring or something like this. So, whenever something like this happens, Kalakanta Prabhu said, I usually ask, are you keeping yourself busy? Probably we can chant extra rounds as Prabhu mentioned. We can do extra services as you mentioned. So yeah, Kalakanta Prabhu said this thing. And then I have a question. Prabhu, you mentioned a lot of things about tolerance. But at the same time, there are few cases where we don't have to be tolerant at all. For example, I can recall Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj saying that whenever somebody is talking about Mayavad, we should not be tolerant. There are three things. So are there any more cases where we are not supposed to be tolerant?
So oftentimes when we're not tolerant, we become angry, right? We become furious. And in Rupa Goswami's Upadesha Amritam, right, one of the urges that we're encouraged that we need to manage is anger. And in Nectar of Instruction, Srila Prabhupada, or I can't remember if Srila Prabhupada gives the explanation, the purport, or I've discussed with devotees that sometimes anger is necessary, sometimes we have to stand up. For example, Hanuman, he exhibited transcendental anger when he burned Lanka, right? So in certain cases, we shouldn't be tolerant. For example, if a devotee is being blasphemed or being insulted, we should not be tolerant of that, right? So there are examples where we should not tolerate it, but the tolerance that I'm mentioning here is things that are happening to us. Bali Maharaj is tolerating what's happening to him. Prahlad Maharaj tolerated what's happened to him. The Pandavas tolerate what happened to them. So what happens to us, we're asked to fortify ourselves and tolerate that. But if if something happening to somebody else, then we should. If we're in a position where we could help, then we should not tolerate. We should stand up. Manu Prabhu?
uh, what Dinu was trying to say reminded me of something. So I've heard devotees speaking, don't take this illusion very seriously.
Oh yeah,
Here
Don't
today,
take.
gone
Yes.
tomorrow.
Yes.
So
And sorry, I also remember something I hear Vishaka Prabhu saying often: "Why worry when there's hurry?" Right. So in regardless of whatever worrying circumstances we have, we can just think of Lord Krishna and take shelter of him. And that's what all these devotees do. Prahlad Maharaj was constantly remembering of Krishna. That's why he was transcendental to what was happening around him. Bali Maharaj literally had Vamanadev in front of him. And he was able to fully surrender to Lord Krishna. Gajendra, he was struggling so much with the crocodile, right? But then he remembered Lord Krishna, and then Lord Krishna came to save him, put him out of his misery, right? So all these devotees, they're teaching us that we just have to take shelter of Krishna no matter what circumstances we may find ourselves in. Manu Prabhu?
I want to add one more thing. So when you ask how to tolerate, I said realizing that it's coming through Krishna or it's Krishna's will. So one thing I've also heard is that devotees say that how to understand if it's Krishna's will. So I've heard that Krishna may not always give you what you want, but he will always give you what you need. So if you understand that, this might not be what I wanted, but this is what I need at this moment. So realizing that would help us to tolerate the situation.
Yes. And I have a question for you, Prabhu. In order to help one realize that or try to understand that this may not be what I want, but what I need, what can someone do to understand that, like come to terms with that? So Prabhu was mentioning that sometimes Krishna doesn't give us what we want, but what we need, right? That statement, how can one learn to accept that, learn to understand that?
Yeah. So I was reading 4 questions, right? So one of the questions is, what is the lesson? So whenever you feel like, this is not what I wanted, then you can ask this question that, what is the lesson here? What is Krishna trying to teach me here? So if you understand the lesson behind the situation, then you'll also be able to understand that, okay, this is not what I asked, Krishna for, but I think this will ultimately help me to be wherever I wanted to be, or Krishna wants this to happen because there's an underlying lesson for me to learn, or maybe Krishna wants me to become more humble, maybe he wants me to tolerate, maybe he wants me to, you know, yeah, I mean, be more grateful. So yeah, things like that. So that might help. Asking that question, what is the
What
lesson?
is the lesson? Thank you, Prabhu. Antariksh, wanted to say something?
Like Arjun was in a battlefield, the same way we all are in a battlefield.
Yes.
We don't want to fight this battle, but yes, we have to fight this battle as a matter of duty.